State-owned airlines are facing numerous challenges ranging from financial mismanagement, declining revenue and corruption. This has led to government having to fork out billions of rand to bail them out. South African Airways and South African Express failed to table their annual reports to Parliament last week. This was as a result of the financial challenges the airlines are facing. But the unions blame this on a lack of technical expertise at the airlines and cadre appointments. Well, to discuss these matters further, I'm joined in our Pretoria studio by Werner Human, who's the Deputy CEO at Solidarity. Thanks very much for joining us, Werner. So how bad is the lack of technical expertise that the unions are concerned about, and could it threaten the safety of our skies?
Good afternoon. The severity of where we are with this is actually so crippling that we can see that the SAA as an airline is not going up or getting better in any sense of the word. It's actually worsening and worsening. If you look at the recent reports past weeks, you would see the crisis actually deepening. So we've got an acute problem with skills. We've got an acute problem with no permanent senior staff, and it's really a race against time.
Absolutely. So what are the concerns by members of the various unions on the ground in terms of them being able to do their work and so on?
The challenges range quite from a technical perspective to a more broad perspective. From Solidarity's side, we have intimated last year in May 2018 that we will prepare a business rescue application. That application was prepared. We've then engaged with talks with Mr. Jarana, and then we've learned earlier this year that he has resigned, and then we again prepared our papers. Just as we wanted to launch and serve our papers, we were approached by the board. We had discussions there. We were not convinced that there were enough radical change that were being brought, and we again pursued finalizing our papers. Thereafter, we were approached by the minister and the department, and we were then engaged currently in talks with the minister and the department pertaining to the airline, and this is on the major issues: the turnaround of SAA, accountability of previous officials and all their mismanagement, and finding a way to turn the airline around. We believe it can be done, but it would be a massive challenge to get this done. Certain unpopular decisions must be made, which includes obtaining a private equity partner for the SAA.
Of course, you're mentioning a lot of legacy issues, but currently, do you know if the practices of the past have been continuing around the area of cadre development, cadre deployment?
One would think that if you look at the challenges of SAA, that we are now at rock bottom. And just as you think the thing matters cannot get worse, you look at the past few weeks where new revelations came. Dudu Mayeni not appearing in court. You've got Mango installing dodgy parts. There are reports of a crime syndicate that has infiltrated SAA. There are 84 dodgy contracts that this special investigation unit has unearthed. This is only the last couple of weeks where this has become prevalent. So again, we must now regroup again, and I think the public trust in SAA, the public trust in state-owned enterprises is at a 0% at present. There should be really some head should roll, name should be named, and serious action should be taken by SAA. At present, I think the feeling is not enough is being done.
Werner, do you think the political leadership of the country is sleeping on the job, given the urgency of the situation? And of course, you're talking about a sector that flies people through the sky from point A to point B, and possible concerns around technical expertise, being able to execute the jobs properly and so on. Do you think that perhaps they're sleeping on the job on this one?
Absolutely. I think one of the core issues here is, as you mentioned, the issues of skills. This country has always a delicate balance between political interest and what needs to be done. And I think for this past a decade or so at least, the political interest has been prevailing, the political interest has been overarching, and this has been detrimental to SAA and the state-owned enterprises. The policy of cadre employment is an incorrect policy. It should be abolished altogether. What they should adopt, and this accounts for other SOEs as well, is a pragmatic approach to say what is needed, what is the best practices to turn the airline around, what is the best practices to turn around the other SOEs. And if you have that, you would have a more emphasis on skills, on technical staff. You had a more emphasis or less emphasis on cadre employment, and those things would be abolished in a world like that. So what's needed is to be unpopular politically. At present, we find that they still would want to be politically popular and implement turnaround strategies. I think what SAA would find, and the other SOEs, you cannot be politically popular and do the right thing at the same time. One of them must budge, and I think the political interest should be the one that budges.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. One last thing. Do you think perhaps one of the reasons that it's been difficult to find leadership for SAA is because of that difficult, delicate balance that you've just spoken about, wanting to please your political principles on the one hand and obviously wanting to execute your job on the other?
That is the case. And another one is the SAA is a state-owned enterprise. It is 100% owned by the state. If you look at the airline industry, it is a highly competitive industry. It moves quickly, decisions are taken swiftly, action is taken swiftly, and if you don't do that, you go under. If SAA was a private airline, they would have been liquidated 10 years ago, even more. But because they are a state-owned enterprise, they are being kept alive. So it's a highly competitive environment. So on the one side, it's the cadre employment and the political position that is a difficult position for any CEO at a state-owned enterprise. And the other challenge, of course, is a structuring of a state-owned enterprise, which makes decision-making slower and execution obviously also on a slower pace.
Werner, thank you very much for your time and your insights, sir. That was Werner Human. He's the Deputy CEO of Solidarity.